Hey, how's it going? This is Alex Donaldson from Level Up Guitar. I've earned gold and platinum records from session guitar playing, and I've written music for like Mazda, Kit Kat, Coors Light, and so many TV shows I've lost count. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to share the 5 things that I wish I knew about session guitar playing before I started. And be sure to stick around for the very end where I share the most important aspect, in my opinion, of session guitar playing if you want to get hired. So stick around and subscribe if you like what you see. The first thing I wish I knew about session guitar playing, I'm going to get this out of the way. The obvious, or sometimes not so obvious to some people, factors. This includes show up on time, have a good attitude, make sure your gear is in working condition, be coachable, etc. This track most likely is not about you. You're here to enhance the track. So really, really concentrate on what the artist, client, producer, or engineer wants. Okay? It's about them. It's their track. Your job is to make it sound good. The second thing that I wish I knew about session guitar playing before I got started is, work on your ear as well as your instrumental proficiency. Okay, I've been thrown into a lot of different situations. I'll give you an example. Something that I've been doing a lot is replacing programmed guitars with real guitars. And I had a client out in Nashville, send me stems, and then they went out on tour and, weren't able to respond to my emails. And what happened was a couple of stems he sent me had like 3-part guitar harmonies on there that I had to pick each part out, using my ear without having each individual stem. So it was very important for me to, work on my interval identification, say, oh, that's a harmony of a third, and, being able to pick that out and make sure that I was really able to replace everything he sent me. So work on your ear. These days, there's so many great apps that you can put on your phone. Like there's a great app, Chet or Earpeggio. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but what I do is I drink my coffee in the morning and I throw on some ear training. And this is something that I wish I would have had when I was, growing up. So work on your ear training. Super important. And a lot of times too, what'll happen is a client will sing something to you. You know what I mean? And so he won't necessarily always be playing it to you, he or she. They won't be playing it to you on their instrument. They'll sing a melody to you. So you need to be able to have great relative pitch, pick up that melody on the fly, so you're not wasting anybody's time or money. Work on your ear. The third thing that I wish I knew about session guitar playing before I got started is to always be available, or always do your best to be available, okay? I'm in a pretty lucky situation. I actually rent an office here in this beautiful studio in Las Vegas, so I'm here a lot anyway. But there have been a couple of times, like for instance, on one of my days off, a very, very prominent, we'll say a 90s superstar needed a guitar in a track. And so the producer was just kind of wandering the halls asking if anyone could play guitar. Unfortunately, it was my day off. And since then, I'd be like, hey, please get me if somebody needs something. Don't, call me if send me a text, let me know. But I missed out on that opportunity. And I also missed out on another opportunity to record banjo for a very prominent rock artist's second project. They had texted me and asked me if I knew banjo. I do, or I'm, presentable enough to play on a session. And unfortunately, I was in Mexico at the time. So I'm like, hey, man, can we wait till I get back before we put this banjo track in? And a lot of times when you're talking session work, it's here and it comes and goes. So these are spur of the moment things. You always have to be available. Another thing that I wish I knew about session guitar playing before I started is to play as many instruments as possible. Now I'm from Ohio, so being from Ohio, I know so many fantastic, killer, great banjo players. And unfortunately, I am not one of them, but I can play banjo. I can play a great roll. I can play it in time, great tone with my right and my left hand, passable to play on a session. So the fact that I can play banjo, I've actually played banjo on a couple of decent tracks and demos for the sole fact of there's nobody else in the immediate vicinity that could play banjo, you know? So I play pretty much everything with frets on it: banjo, ukulele, mandolin, guitar, bass, and am I as proficient as I am at guitar with some of those instruments? Absolutely not. But I always make sure to have good tone, play in time, especially if you're not proficient. Don't play outside of your abilities. So, play as many instruments as possible. And you don't have to be like a virtuoso at every single one of them. Here it is. The most important aspect of session guitar playing that I wish I knew before I started. And that is, don't sacrifice tone for technique. Okay? Don't sacrifice tone for technique. What do I mean by that? I actually see this a lot in my my private lessons as well. I'll see a guitar player, wanting to maybe play faster. And what they will do is they will play with like a lot of gain, and they'll get a guitar with super high output pickups and a super light string gauge in order to play as light as possible. Now, sometimes depending on the style of music you're playing, it calls for that, but there's definitely, in my opinion, a tone loss once you start to chase certain techniques, okay? So I always make sure to realize that my tone comes first. As a session guitar player, like I mentioned, you are not the focal point of this track. You need to make sure your guitar or your bass or your banjo sounds good and presentable. That is quite literally your job, okay? There's actually one time where I have a guitar typically set up with 10s that I bring into my sessions. And in one of my lessons, we were working on Arpeggios from Hell by Yngwie Malmsteen. And, I just was having fun, and I tossed 8s on the guitar, did a quick little setup with 8s on it. And I went into a session. I accepted a session later on that day, and the producer was like, "Alex, why does your guitar sound different?" And I'm just like, oh man, I didn't have the heart to tell him that I actually put 8s on those. And there is a distinctive tonal difference, in my opinion, from 10s and 8s. And so I sacrificed my tone for technique. I wish I didn't do that. Of course, it wasn't a big deal. I came in, I threw 10s on it the next day, and we took care of the track, but it could have been a disaster. Don't sacrifice tone for technique. In conclusion here, session guitar playing, unfortunately, it isn't what it used to be, with all of the different programming techniques and, rock kind of taking a back seat in some styles of music. It's not like the days of, Jimmy Page or Steve Lukather, these epic session musicians, getting all these great gigs. But that being said, you should really focus and be grateful for the work that you do get. And I am. So really take all my factors to heart. Don't make the same mistakes that I did and I outlined here. Thank you so much for your time today. If you like what you saw, hit me with a subscribe, shoot me a comment. Thank you so much. Until next time.